Our speaker this morning, as I shared earlier with you, is Dr. Greg Brock, who is an economist. He's a professor of economics at Georgia Southern University. He was asked to do this talk on financial literacy by Barbara Sprouse back before COVID even started. She said, will you do one of our summer services and do it on financial literacy? Barbara just told him the topic. So he said, okay. And then when it turned out that we were going to be having services online and the Statesboro and the Brunswick congregations were going to share, there are 9 summer services. So we said, okay, that's 4 that Brunswick will come up with and share and 4 that Statesboro will. And since Greg and I are members of both congregations, that final one, we said, okay, that's when Greg can do it because we'll be representing both congregations. And this will be our 9th summer service, our final summer service. And Greg is right here. I'm going to stop the share and we're going to convert over to him a little bit. So just hold on with us. We're going to stop it again for a minute, and then I'm going to actually start it again with his stuff, his information. Let me see if I see. You see Word up there anywhere? Right. Oh, there it is. Okay. No, you're just going to talk. I'm going to share. Okay. Oh, you mean toggle? Okay. Which not quite yet. Okay. Yeah, it's in there. I'm going to get rid of this bar for you so it won't be in your way. You're on.
Okay. Welcome to Financial Literacy and You. And remember, if you find this talk a little bit academic, I take that as a compliment, as I have no theological training. Financial literacy is often seen as something that you can only get if you go to Harvard. It's way up there and only a few know it. So keep in mind that Harvard's just another ale, porter, or export beer like any other, and you don't have to go to Harvard to be financially literate. So I'll be talking a little bit about wealth, which financial literacy helps you accumulate. Then some questions for you about your own financial literacy, and then what you can do to help others with their financial literacy. So just a second. We're trying to toggle here. Okay, a few wealth inequality facts that you probably have read or heard about. The white-black household wealth ratio is 10 to 1. So in a recent year, that was $180,000 of home equity, 401k for whites, and a similar black household with the same characteristics like marital status, etc., would be only $18,000. Also, blacks pay 0.5% more on a mortgage. This is 50 years after the 1968 Fair Housing Act. So we have wealth inequality through discrimination on the mortgage interest rate. And of course, wealth is closely related to health, even locally. In Chicago, for example, where I was recently located, Englewood residents, a suburb of Chicago, have a life expectancy of 60 years. 9 miles up on a train is another suburb called Streeterville. They have a life expectancy of 90 years. So 30-year life expectancy at birth difference just in a single city, and that's across America as well. And we also, you can note that the U.S. overall hasn't had a life expectancy of 60 for over 100 years. So there's great variation in life expectancy, which is health, a common measure of health, which relates back to the wealth. And also the weathering that people of color in the Black community often have with their health. We can go to white fragility guidance to look at that, how we can help with that, and it relates also to wealth. So what I'm going to look at now is 3 questions that were asked of a lot of Americans over 50 in 2004 to understand their financial literacy. And it's become more important in the past 30 years as many of us now must face retirement with a defined contribution plan, not a defined benefit plan. So that's gone from 40 to 90% of Americans have defined contribution plans. Those of you on defined benefit plans, there are a few left, like TRS in Georgia or STRS in Ohio, but most of us are kind of on our own, making financial literacy a lot more important. The questions will look at numeracy, inflation, and risk diversification. When we look at these questions, there'll be answers. You can always say, I don't know, or you could not answer the question when it's asked of a lot of people. We find when we look in the United States that with financial literacy, men are more likely to choose an answer when they actually don't know. And women are likely to be more honest and say, I don't know, and choose that answer. So there is a gender difference also with these questions. The financial literacy, if we could do it well, this would reduce wealth inequality by about 50%. So there's hope that if this can be widespread, we could really go after that wealth inequality that we see so horribly demonstrated now with the COVID and who's getting it and who's suffering the most from it. Also, financial literacy has to do with people who are unbanked. So if you know someone who is getting a paycheck and they don't have a bank account, you might see them lined up at Walmart and paying to cash their paycheck. About 10% of Americans are not banked. And now with the apps that we have, there's really no reason for this. And the fees that are charged to do that are a drain often on people who are very poor. Okay, let's look at the first question that was asked of a lot of people. Okay, so if you have $100 in a savings account, you get simple interest, 2% a year at the end of the year. After 5 years, how much will be in the account? So this is a numeracy question, and you can choose $102, more than 102, less than 102, I don't know, or you can just not answer. About 50% of Americans who looked at this question got it incorrect, and 50% got it correct in that sample I talked about. So this is a question, just basic numeracy. It refers back to the Dr. Seuss book that we had, where there were some examples in there about thinking about, how much water do elephants drink and things like that. So that's your first question. Okay, the next question. Yeah, scroll. You have a savings account that pays 1% per year. Inflation is 2% per year. After a year, will you be able to buy more, the same, less, I don't know, or no answer? Okay. I was in my talk going to say that we as Americans only know inflation, but we do have, now that Bill has joined us, at least one American who remembers a time where we had a deflation, that is, prices in general went down in 1930, 1931. So there's a few people who might remember that, but mostly if you're an American, you think prices are going to go up every year. This question is interesting in that in a country that has had a recent deflation, Japan, where prices have steadily fallen. So the correct answer, if you had a deflation of 2%, is that you would wait and the prices would go down, and so you would put off buying things. So they have a problem there with people not going out and buying things and putting things off again and again because the prices are steadily falling. So Americans, Germans, and Dutch, some other countries will answer this question more correct than those in Japan. Another issue this question brings up is your perception of your financial literacy and your actual financial literacy. In the United States, people tend to think of financial literacy, their perception of how literate they are rises with age pretty steadily. But their actual financial literacy actually is bell-shaped. And so as you get older, your financial literacy, your ability to answer questions like these correctly falls. So this leads to a lot of scamming of the elderly because they think their financial literacy is quite good when actually their actual financial literacy is quite low. So you have what we call self-assessed versus actual. So this is a problem that we see with financial literacy, even if you've done some training. Okay, and then the third question, this looks at the stock market, of course. We have to look at risk. And this is an interesting question in that if you buy a single company stock, usually provides a safer return than a stock mutual fund. Okay, the correct answer here is false. It's interesting if you go to Germany. In German retirement saving, they don't buy stocks. They also don't buy their homes. They view real estate and stocks as too risky. So a German may have a different answer than an American for this question. Also, if we reverse the language in this and we put stock mutual fund at the top and single company stock at the bottom, we can get at, are people really guessing? Because you would think if you just reverse the sentence, you would get similar answers, but you don't. So this looks at how risk averse people are when they're making financial decisions. And we can go to a country that has a nice economy like Germany, handling COVID pretty well. And people are extremely risk averse, and explore why that is, that they are not in the stock market and they're not owning their own homes like we do in the US. Okay, so what can you do about financial literacy? Let's take a look at some ideas, and I know there's many that are out there. You may remember the children's story from Dr. Spencer's talk read by the Obamas. It was about collecting. And we've also had in services journaling, the importance of journaling. Well, if you collect anything, keep track of it in a journal, especially if it's coins. Let's say you don't collect coins though. Do you pick up money on the ground that as you walk around and you see a quarter or a dime, do you pick it up? This is a way to develop financial literacy. I use it with my students who often say, I can't do financial literacy. I'm not saving any money. In fact, I'm going into debt. So I ask them, do you pick up money as you walk to class? And they usually say, yeah, especially if it's a dollar bill or something. So keep that maybe in the notes app of your computer or have it at home, and then add it up at the end of the year. How much money did you find on the ground? That will help develop savings behavior and financial literacy. And it's a simple thing that you might already be doing. You can also break this out. We've had the Crandalls at Brunswick congregation have done a lot with storytelling. You can make up stories about the money you found. So you can use this with a younger group. Old timers may remember the pet rocks from the 1970s. They had a story with the rock, a little piece of paper told the rock story. So you can build this into a younger group, perhaps with storytelling and journaling, and teach them to collect and take advantage of whatever it is they collect to develop this savings behavior of journaling and adding things up. Okay, another idea. If you're at home and you want to learn a foreign language, well, first of all, Spanish is not a foreign language in Los Estados Unidos, but let's say you do want to learn Spanish and financial literacy, you can simply go to handsonbanking.org. This allows you to not only practice Spanish and financial literacy, there's audio with it. You can learn about credit cards, mortgages, things like that in English or Spanish, but you can share it, especially with people who are undocumented that you may know. You can imagine that if you're an undocumented family here in Southeast Georgia, you probably find things like credit cards and mortgages even more confusing than average. And this is a nice site to let you talk even to younger people completely in Spanish about financial literacy. Now, one warning, it is sponsored by Wells Fargo. And Wells Fargo has not treated its customers well in recent years. So I recommend the site, but I would not bank at Wells Fargo. Okay, a third idea is consider banking Black, or we have initiatives both in Statesboro and in Brunswick with new Black and minority-owned business directories. We have in Savannah one of the few banks left that is Black-owned, carverstatebank.com. You can use any bank, but Carver State Bank in particular, to open an account for a kid, which might require your name on it, and have the statement mailed to your address using snail mail. Use the rarity of snail mail, right? Who gets snail mail anymore? To educate younger people by getting that hard copy statement and spending a couple of minutes reading to them what is in the account and the interest, and this gets back to the Hollies song, the interest that is accruing on that account. And by the way, with that Hollies song, if you can guess who sang that song and also sang in Bess Sutton's Cost of Freedom song, I'll give you a gold star. That is, there's one person who sang on both. So this is a way that you can use the snail mail to help kids learn about money and interest rates. And then history and financial literacy. This you can use if you have some influence in a middle school Georgia history class or maybe a high school US history class. It's very helpful to learn spreadsheets when you're doing financial literacy, like Excel. Thankfully, Emory University has put the Middle Passage logbooks up on a database, and I have the URL down there. So you can teach about the Middle Passage and see how much people were bought and sold for using the database. So kids are learning about the Middle Passage and also developing some spreadsheet skills and perhaps getting a sense of inflation as well. So history and financial literacy can be taught simultaneously, and you can take advantage of that using this Middle Passage database. So these are a few ideas. There are, of course, apps that are out there like Nerd Wallet, and there's another one called Robinhood that I don't know as well. So this is a big topic, but I think that we need to change the financial literacy in the United States, and it's a nice path if you're concerned about wealth inequality to reduce that inequality through education. Unfortunately, right now, we don't know which types of financial literacy are best. So that's a current area of research. Are apps better than URLs, or do we need face-to-face, or maybe a Zoom training? Would that work best? Thanks for watching, and talk to you soon.